If you're looking for delicious ways to hit your protein goals without sacrificing flavor, I've got you covered with 2 mouthwatering recipes that will make meal prep the highlight of your week. Bacon Shrimp Corn Chowder for a cozy meal on these cold days, and a high protein, lower calorie twist on Korean Pork Galbi rice bowls. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mindy and I have lost over 125 pounds using GLP medications as a tool. And today we're diving into 2 incredible high protein recipes that are perfect to fit into your weekly meal prep routine, but quick enough to throw together on any weeknight. First up, I have a creamy and hearty bowl of bacon shrimp corn chowder that's loaded with protein and big on comfort, all for under 350 calories a serving. Then we're switching things up with a leaner twist on a Korean Pork Galbi rice bowl. It's packed with flavor and less than 500 calories a bowl, including all the trimmings. Both recipes are simple, satisfying, and perfect for keeping you on track with your health goals. You ready to make something delicious? Let's get started. All right, so we're gonna start with this shrimp and bacon corn chowder. And I already put together my mise en place. Look at me, so fancy with my French terms. That just means everything in its place. So I went through the recipe, diced up my onions, cut up my bacon, got all of the ingredients sitting out so that it's quicker and easier to put everything together. That's obviously what I have to do for filming, but it's also a good way to kind of get yourself together for meal prep as well. I find it makes everything go faster when I'm getting it out in the beginning instead of trying to pull it out as I go. So I took my pound of shrimp and I set it in a colander in the sink in a single layer, and I sprayed it down with a little bit of water just so that it could get a head start on defrosting. And then the only thing I'm gonna do, because the shrimp that I have are like extra large shrimp, the recipe calls for medium, but that, I think it might even be jumbo shrimp. They were what was on sale when I bought them a few weeks ago, and why we're eating shrimp twice this week, because they're taking up too much room in my freezer. And yeah, so they were like $4.98 a pound or something like that in a 2-pound bag. And so yeah, that's why I'm eating shrimp this week. But also, with the cold weather being what it is, I'm just really feeling soup and warmth. I wrote out the concept for last week's video for those wraps, which were delicious, by the way. If you missed that video, definitely check it out here. They were delicious, but it was so cold last week and all I wanted was something warm for lunch. But I still very much enjoyed them, but I wish I had done that when it wasn't so freaky cold. We have cold temperatures again all this week, next week, and I'm ready for a nice warm lunch. So this recipe is going to make 5 servings for me. The recipe said that it only made 4 servings, but based on the amount of ingredients here, I'm thinking 5 servings is gonna be just fine. I usually stretch a pound of meat to 5 lunches for me anyways. I have my Dutch oven over here warming up over medium-ish heat. I'm going to start by taking all my bacon, which is still partially frozen, by the way, because it's a lot easier to cut when it's still frozen. So this is just half of a container of bacon, so 6 ounces. It's easy to just cut the container of bacon in half and then just store it in the freezer that way. So I'm sure you're all steamed up and you can't see a thing, but so that took no time at all to defrost and start going. And of course my smoke detector is going off. Please hold. Practically all I have to do is sneeze and my smoke detector goes off in this apartment, but you know. So I'm just gonna cook this bacon up until it gets mostly crispy and renders off all of that delicious bacon fat. The recipe tells me to get rid of all but 1 tablespoon of this bacon fat. I logged the calories for every bit of this bacon, and you can bet I ain't throwing a drop of that bacon fat away. And then once that bacon is done crisping up, I'm just gonna set it aside. I am gonna put it back into the soup. I'm not gonna use it for a topping. I prefer to just cook the bacon in with the soup once it gets past a certain point, because I think it gives more flavor. I told you guys last week that I had heard a, I'd heard a trick where if you put a wadded up wet paper towel next to your onions while you're cutting them up, it keeps your eyes from stinging. Yeah, no, it didn't work. I think it helped a little bit, but yeah, this onion was particularly strong, and I've just been like, I've had this paper towel draped over the onions after they've been cut up, and that I've noticed has helped. I think these bacons are good and crispy, so I'm gonna take them out. Ow, I just burnt my finger. Stick them in this spider here. So I'm gonna set that bacon to the side. And then to this bacon fat, I'm gonna add my onions. This is just a medium to smallish yellow onion that I diced up. My husband's not eating this, so I don't need to worry about how large my onion pieces are. And then to these onions, I'm gonna add some salt and pepper. The recipe doesn't give measurements for salt and pepper, it's just to taste. I'm just gonna add it until the spirit of my ancestors tell me to stop. These are my jumbo shrimp. They're quite large, so obviously I'm not gonna fit all of that into a spoon. So I'm just gonna cut those in half, and I pulled them out of the colander and put them on a paper towel to help with some of the moisture. And buying medium shrimp would make this a lot faster because you wouldn't need to deal with this, but they were on sale. In Mindy's Kitchen, cheap wins every time. So now I'm just gonna add these to my onions. Plop them on in there. Okay, and to this, I'm also gonna add my seasoning. In here I have a teaspoon of paprika, half a teaspoon of thyme, and a couple pinches of red pepper flakes. I like adding those to the oil to let the spices bloom. All good and coated in the fat and spices. Get the skins off of 2 very large cloves of garlic, because garlic and shrimps is best friends. Again, using my handy dandy little garlic peeler. If you didn't see that last week, I will link it. You just roll it around a few times and then voila, your garlic clove is magically peeled. I am all about cheap tools that make my life in the kitchen easier. Kind of wish I had cut those shrimp up a little smaller, but too late now. It's too late, baby, now it's too late. Now let's crush this garlic in here. Recipe calls for a tablespoon. These 2 garlic cloves are massive, so it's probably a bit more than a tablespoon, but I'm okay with it. I heart garlic, and it's very good for you. Wait until that garlic gets a little flagrant. That flagrant garlic. Fragrant. I'm gonna throw in my frozen corn. It is still frozen. Recipe calls for 2.5 cups. This was what I had left of a frozen bag. I weighed it before I put it in my calorie counter. Oh, that smells good. We're gonna add 3 to 4 cups of chicken stock. I don't use chicken stock, I use Better Than Bouillon. I get this at Costco. This giant container is like, I don't know, $6 or $7, and it makes 100 cups of chicken broth. So way cheaper than buying the box stuff, and it tastes a million times better. So it's a teaspoon per cup. I'm doing 3 cups, which is actually a tablespoon. And then I'm gonna add my 3 cups of water. And that bouillon will just dissolve in the broth. It'll be fine. Get it off of the spoon as well. I totally forgot a modification that I made. I forgot I was gonna add a potato. To me, chowder is just not chowder without a potato. So I'm only adding 1 potato, but it's gonna need some time to cook in there. And I have a feeling my shrimp are gonna be way overcooked by the time this is done cooking. I was gonna cook the potato in with the onions and let it simmer in the stuff before it, whatever. It is what it is. Do I want to try to fish these shrimp out? Fish the shrimp out? No. Just gonna wash this potato, cut it up into small pieces, and then I'll put it in there. And I'm using a white potato, which is a kind of a waxy potato. It's one of the lowest calorie potatoes. The skins are very, very thin, so I'm not at all worried about peeling it beforehand. I just gave it a good wash. It wants this to simmer for 15 minutes anyway, so that should be enough time. And I'm gonna give that a stir. Oh, I need to add my half and half. I'm just doing a cup of ultra filtered whole milk instead of half and half. The calories are similar to fat-free half and half, but this has more protein. Bring this up to a boil, and then reduce it to a simmer for about 15 minutes, and then we'll check it for salt and pepper, and it's done. Oh, I need to add my bacon back in so that that flavor can get to know everybody in the pool. Lid on, bring to a boil, reduce to a simmer, 15 minutes, we'll be back. This is done. I took the lid off, stirred it a little bit, and it looks fine. It is a little thin for a chowder. probably because they wanted me to blend the corn like into the soup, and I just wanted the corn. So I think I may add a little bit of a cornstarch slurry to this. I didn't include it in the calories, but I think I'm gonna be okay. Just a couple tablespoons of water, a couple tablespoons of cornstarch, and then I'm just gonna stir in that cornstarch. I think that's gonna be perfect. Perfect. Could definitely use a little bit more salt though. The potatoes soak up a lot of salt. Let it cool, and then we'll put it in 5 little meal prep containers for the week, and that's lunch. Yeah, if I hadn't been filming, this would have only taken 20 minutes. So this is also an easy weeknight meal. Ooh, that's good. A little bit of spice from the red pepper flakes. That's yummy. It does need a little bit more salt. Got with the pre-ground stuff. Ooh, it's real garlicky too. Just the way I like it. 1 down. I know several of you have asked about these meal prep containers, so if you're interested, I'll have them listed down below. Since I'm the only one eating this, I'm not really worried about how even the bowls are. I'm just gonna try and split it as evenly as I can, because it's all gonna even out at the end of the week. But it looks like it's gonna come out to a couple of cups of soup per bowl. And there you have it. Put lids on these. Lids? I'll put on some lids. Stack them up, put them in the fridge, and I just grab one before I leave for work in the morning and go. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Hi guys. So I'm on my break. Everyone here is so nice. Super happy, sweet people. And I was like, I don't normally eat stinky food. And of course, my first week here, I brought shrimp soup. That smells really good. It's just very shrimpy. Yeah, that's delicious. I was a little worried about the shrimp being rubbery because they had to cook them for so long. Well, I cooked them for as long as it told me to, but I was a little worried about it being a little too long, but it's not. They're perfect. It's delicious. Yep. The second recipe is slightly authentic, sort of inspired. It is Bacon Galbi. If you've ever been to all you can eat Korean barbecue and you've had the LA Galbi, the flanken style ribs that have the little tiny bones in it, and it's sweet and savory and delicious. This is that, except in a pork version. Now, the authentic version uses pork butt, which is fatty and delicious, but it's also very, very high in calories. So to have a little bit of a calorie savings, I am using pork tenderloin. Now, I just took this and I cut it kind of on the bias, like, you know, diagonally into thin strips. And he suggests cross-hatching it along the surface. I'm not going through all of that. This is also a much more tender cut of meat than pork butt is, so I'm not really worried about combating any of the kind of chewiness that comes with the pork butt and all of the connective tissue that's in that. This is just gonna soak up the marinade and be great. Today, all I'm doing is putting together the marinade for this, and then I'm gonna throw together a quick spicy cucumber salad, and I'll be putting that in my rice bowls with the pork, and it's gonna be delicious. I love Korean food. This whole thing, including the rice and the cucumber salad and the pork, which this is 2¼ pounds of pork, which is gonna make 6 servings, which is a lot. I'm gonna be straining out the solids in the sauce and boiling it down to make like a thick, sweet and savory, delicious. Anyway, I'm excited about this one, can you tell? There is kind of a unique ingredient in this marinade. It's an Asian pear or Korean pear, and you'll find these in your grocery store over by the pears, at least my grocery store, that's where they keep them. You may not be able to find them, and if you can't, that's fine. If you have an Asian grocery market around you, you'll also be able to find them, and they'll probably be quite a lot cheaper. But this little baby is the secret to this marinade. There's an enzyme in Asian pear that helps to break down the protein structures in the meat, so it makes it super tender. It's basically like a tenderizer. It's also found in like papaya, pineapple, I think mango. If you can find it, please try to use it. The recipe calls for using part Korean pear, part apple, but I'm halving the recipe. So rather than only using half of this and having the other half hanging around in my refrigerator, I'm just gonna use this whole pear and forego the apple. As this original recipe makes 4½ pounds of meat, which I mean, honestly, I could do that and then just put the other half of it in my freezer, and I would do that, except for I don't have room in my freezer, guys. I have too many things in my freezer. So let's throw together this marinade. I need to wash this. I'm gonna peel this one because I don't know if you can see, but it's got stuff on it, and I don't know what it is, but I don't want to eat it. And I don't know if you can see, but the texture of it is kind of similar to jicama. It's a little more firm than a regular pear, but you could substitute out like a Bosc pear or something like that if you wanted to try and mimic the flavor. I also, like the silly person that I am, completely and totally forgot to get green onions. When I was making my grocery list, I forgot to put them on there. Cut this Korean pear into manageable sizes and get rid of the core and seeds here and just throw them in my food processor. We'll be making this in my food processor, but you can also use a blender, an immersion blender, magic bullet, whatever you got. I love this food processor. I have had it for years. It's a Cuisinart 14 cup. I'll link it down below if you guys are interested in a food processor. It's not the cheapest thing, but this thing is a workhorse. I can shred 5 pounds of cheese in like 3 seconds. It's just like for meal prep, it's a beast. Hey bud, you want to try some Korean pear? He's never had this before. Can you say please? Yes, good boy. Burp. Is that good? Yeah? He loves fruits and vegetables. The one that surprised me and cracked me up that he likes is cabbage. He loves cabbage. The second I get it out, he is all up in my business. You're a funny dog, but he doesn't like carrots. I've never had a dog that didn't like carrots. You're silly. We'll pretend that I added 3 green onions in there because that's what should be in there, and I'm very sad that I don't have them because it would add a very nice flavor to this, but 3/4 of a cup of water in here just to get everything moving. A 1/2 cup of soy sauce. 1/4 cup of mirin. That's very sweet and delicious. It's like a sweet rice wine, but I've got the non-alcoholic one. And then 1 1/4 tablespoons of oyster sauce. Nice and savory and delicious. 1 1/2 tablespoons of light corn syrup, but I have this, it's Korean brown rice syrup, so I'm gonna use this instead, but if you have corn syrup, you can use that. You could probably use maple syrup instead, whatever liquid sweetener you like. Stuff is thick with 3 C's. 1 1/2 tablespoons of toasted sesame oil. And then the recipe calls for 1 1/2 tablespoons of minced garlic. It's going in, I'm not mincing it. Also, this is probably more than 1 1/2 tablespoons worth. This is 4 very large cloves, so I'm just gonna throw them in there. Some grated fresh ginger. Anytime I buy my ginger, I immediately put it in the freezer. This is a fantastic way to store your ginger. It keeps it fresh for a very long time, and it's way easier to grate frozen than it is fresh. It does sometimes end up with like a little bit of ice on it, so I'll rinse it off first. And then I just get a microplane, which if you don't have one of these, invaluable kitchen device. And I'm just gonna grate it straight into my container. And I like ginger a lot, so I may go a little heavy on this. Fresh ginger is quite potent, so if you don't know how you feel about it, maybe go a little light until you know. A 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, but I'm going to use white pepper instead because I like the flavor of it. 3/4 of a tablespoon of dark soy sauce. I'm just gonna eyeball this. If you don't have dark soy sauce and you don't wanna buy it, you could just add more of the regular. This just helps with the color. It makes it darker. It's a little bit thicker and a little more rich than regular soy sauce, but I do a lot of Asian cooking, so I have a lot of these ingredients on hand. And it's a good thing I had it sitting over here because I totally forgot about it. I have a yellow onion. I technically only need 1/2 of an onion, but because I didn't have my green onion, I'm gonna just do the whole one. And also this is a pretty small yellow onion, so I'm just gonna do the whole thing. This recipe called for dark brown sugar. I don't have any, and I prefer the flavor of light brown sugar anyway, so that's what I'm gonna use. We're just gonna do 1/4 cup. Now you could do some more calorie savings here by doing like the sugar-free, no calorie brown sugar here, but this is so low calorie even after having all of this in it. I am not concerned. And the last ingredient, which is totally optional but not in my house, is a 1/2 teaspoon of MSG. I love MSG. I get it at Walmart under accent. It just adds umami. That's all it does. That's why it's used so often in Asian cooking. MSG has a terrible reputation, but most of that is actually rooted in some pretty horrible things. If you don't have a sensitivity to MSG, there's nothing wrong with it. It's naturally occurring in many, many ingredients: tomatoes, sardines, anchovies, certain types of mushrooms. So there's nothing wrong with it. But some people do have a sensitivity to it, just like some people have a sensitivity to gluten or allergies or things like that. So anyway, if you don't have a sensitivity to it, there's nothing wrong with it. Put the top on this and give it a whir. Took maybe 30 seconds and we're good to go. And that's what it looks like. It's savory applesauce. Pear sauce. Oh, it smells so good. I'm gonna let it go for just a little bit longer. I'll just take my gallon-sized bag and I fold the edges over like this so that I don't make a mess. And then just pour that in there. Ooh. Seal that bag up, take all the air out, and you can always just use a regular like Tupperware type container for this if you want, but I'm just gonna give it a zhuzh. And I may take it out once or twice tonight or tomorrow and just give it another little zhuzh, but because this is so liquidy, to save my refrigerator from possible blowouts, I am going to stick it in this container and then I'll stick it in the fridge like that until tomorrow when we will cook it up in a pan and shove it in our face. Last but not least for the day, we're gonna put together a spicy cucumber salad. Again, butchering probably the pronunciation, oi machim. The primary ingredient you're gonna need is gochujang. So I buy it in this large container because it stays good for a very long time. It's fermented, so it's great for your gut health. And the trick to keeping it fresh is after you've opened it up, because this little lid kind of just like lifts up like this, but it gets really dried out. So if you stick a piece of plastic wrap, like this little lid just comes right off. If you stick a piece of plastic wrap underneath that lid, it'll keep it nice and juicy for you because you don't want it to dry out. It gets really gross. I'm going to rely on my trusty kitchen scale for this because, again, I don't want to measure things. So 19 grams. That's probably way too much. Oh yeah. You know what? I think I allotted for both. Yeah. So 38 grams. And the recipe calls for 2 cucumbers. I just like mine saucy. So the same amount of sauce ingredients with only 1 cucumber. I just put the plastic wrap over that and then I'm gonna put the lid on top, stick it back in the fridge, and it'll keep it fresh as the day that I opened it. Also, I know that gochujang looks scary because it's bright red and it's got lots of peppers in it. It's really not that spicy. This stuff, however, this is Korean red pepper flake. It's called gochugaru, and it says on the label, red pepper, nice, tasty. So, which makes me giggle every time. I do not put as much as she calls for. The recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of this stuff, and it is quite hot. So I just kind of eyeball this because, I mean, there's not really a lot of calories in it. And I'm just gonna put probably 1 tablespoon, a half a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of sugar, which is optional, but to me it's not. I like the sweet and savory. A tablespoon of sesame oil, and a tablespoon of toasted sesame seeds. The recipe calls for 3 cloves of garlic, but these cloves are pretty big, so I'm just gonna go with 2. And I'm also gonna add a little sprinkle of MSG. I'm gonna stir this together just to get everybody to know each other. And then I have half an onion that I'm gonna cut, and I'm gonna cut it in little strips this way and add it in. And then I'm gonna take my cucumber, which I have a very interested party in down here. And then I'm gonna cut these into chunks, feeling I'm not gonna be able to fit all of them in there. It's a very large cucumber. I think I used too small of a container. Anyway, the liquid will start to come out of the cucumbers and onions, and it'll thin out this paste. Well, why dirty 1 container when you can dirty 2? This one's probably too big. everybody in the pool. I'm glad I used the whole sauce recipe because with the size of that cucumber, it never would have happened. I can go in and stir it up a couple times today if I want to, but I don't have to. Ooh, spicy. Stick it in the fridge and that'll be ready to put on my rice bowl tomorrow. Hello friends, it's Monday night. I had every intention of filming me browning off the meat and everything, but when I got home from work, I was starving, so that wasn't a thing. So all I did was I just heated up my pan over a medium-high heat, and I just seared the little pieces. They don't take long at all to cook because they're cut so thin. To bulk up my rice, because rice is quite calorie heavy, I do half white rice, jasmine rice is what I use tonight, and then half cauliflower rice. And then I kind of drain as much of the water as I can out of the cauliflower rice. After I steam it, I just put it in a little wire mesh strainer. You don't have to do that step. You can leave the water in it. I normally do, but the last couple times I've made it, it's been real wet. So I went ahead and took that water out. And then I did 4 ounces of the pork and some of the rice and a bunch of that spicy cucumber salad, and we're gonna give it a taste. See how it is. My husband already told me that he thought it was delicious. Some rice and some pork and some cucumber and onion. Oh, those cucumbers are spicy. ABC delicious. It's not as sweet as a lot of the galbi that I've had, but it's like great. It's real good. The marinade is delicious. Give this one a shot tonight to like make the rice and everything else. It took me about 30 minutes to throw everything together. 2 thumbs up. Yum. You should eat it. And that's it, friends. 2 amazing high protein recipes to spice up your meal prep and keep you on track. Whether you're craving the cozy vibes of Bacon Shrimp Corn Chowder or the bold, delicious flavors of the Korean Pork Galbi bowls, these recipes are here to make your week easier and so much tastier. I wanted to give a special thank you to my BuyMeACoffee members. If you're not a member yet and you'd love to join, there's no pressure, but I'd love to have you. Members get exclusive access to my weekly meal plans and free printable recipe cards. So it's a great way to make meal planning and meal prep even easier for yourself on a weekly basis. You can find the link in the description, as always, if you're interested. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed these recipes, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss my video this Friday where I talk about my latest progress in my weight loss journey. You've got this, friends. Remember, it's all about progress, not perfection. And I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.
We're on a journey, looking back on the things that we've taken for granted, but feels like we're learning to be better without what's been holding us back now.